Let's get right to that trader talk now with pro trader Tim Biggam of Delta Derivatives. Good to see you there, Tim. Bank earnings have been rolling in. What's your take?
So far, kind of a mixed bag, Angie. Certainly, the bar was set kind of low on these names. They're holding back bigger reserves. I think that's the key to bank earnings here, but certainly haven't knocked it out of the park or have been knocked out of the park either. I think really tech earnings as we get further into earnings season will be the key here. We're starting to see the NASDAQ outperform the Dow simply because interest rates are lower. So all those things coming into play here as we get into the meat of earnings.
China's GDP came in, it was up 3%, better than expected, but still low growth. Is that affecting the stock market with that powerhouse economy hurting a bit?
I think for the short term, not as much, simply because China is doing what they can to make sure it doesn't get even worse here. A little bit longer term, certainly that will come into play. Chinese stocks have been the big outperformers here, as we've talked about. I'm kind of getting a little bit bearish on those names up around here, simply because of the big rally they've had. So I kind of like NASDAQ versus the Dow and the Chinese stocks going forward here, simply on a performance basis.
What's your trade of the day, Tim?
Big unusual call buying in Wendy's, of all names, WEN. Nelson Peltz came out and said, he's not looking at acquiring it yet. The big call buying continues. So the February 17 at the money calls, we have seen now over 7,000 trade versus it's basically zero open interest. IV is lifted dramatically here. So I'm jumping in, buying the stock, selling these very expensive calls to hedge it, basically have the same exposure as the call buyer, but taking advantage of the fact they're overpaying for it going forward.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.